that bipartisan Senate report on the January 6th assault on the Capitol. It says law enforcement failed to recognize the serious potential for violence, despite numerous warnings that the attack was being planned in plain sight. The report also blames Capitol Police intelligence for leaving rank-and-file officers vulnerable. Congressional correspondent Rachel Scott has the details for us. Hi, Rachel.
Diane and Terry, well, this is a blistering bipartisan report at a time when Democrats and Republicans are divided over very many issues. Both sides that were part of this say that there were multiple security failures and that they were significant at every single level of government. One senator saying that this was an attack that was just simply out there in plain sight, that they had intelligence warning of some of the violence on January 6th. Senator Amy Klobuchar, I just spoke to her. She said there were actually maps circulating on social media with how to break into the United States Capitol. But that information was not passed down to the people and the officers on the front lines, leaving them very vulnerable. Senator Amy Klobuchar told me there is no reason as to why this building, the United States Capitol, should have been left so vulnerable with that much intelligence. Still, this was something that was very limited in scope. It looked at the events on January 6th, the multiple security failures, but it did not get into what provoked it. Actually, former President Donald Trump's name is only mentioned about 44 times. But this bipartisan group also made a list of recommendations. Now, this included everything from beefing up security around the United States Capitol to also making sure that the Capitol Police Chief has the power to call in the National Guard if they feel like they need backup, and also ensuring that the Capitol Police officers do have the proper training. We know that they were significantly outnumbered that day. What this is also doing is renewing some of those calls for the independent commission. Senator Klobuchar told me that there are still a lot of questions out there that they do not have answers to. Actually, the Department of Justice, the Department of Homeland Security, and the FBI, they said, did not fully cooperate with many of their requests. They believe that there needs to be an independent commission to get to the bottom of this, but Republicans are not on board with that. They call it slanted and unbalanced, and they fear that Democrats will drag it out ahead of the midterm elections. Guys?
All right, congressional correspondent Rachel Scott, thank you. And ABC News political director Rick Klein joins us now for more on this. Rick, you heard Rachel there talking about the narrow scope of this investigation. So what else wasn't covered here?
Yeah, I mean, look, this report is stunning in terms of the deficiencies that it found in terms of law enforcement, but those deficiencies were self-evident. Anyone who experienced or even watched on TV what was happening on the Capitol on January 6th could recognize that there were major failures. What we don't know is what the major political leaders were doing and saying, both in the run-up to those events on January 6th and in real time. President Trump's role personally, his responsibility for provoking people to show up at the Capitol, and then perhaps just as importantly, his response as the hours went by, as the National Guard was not activated, despite the frustrations that are outlined in this report, what Mike Pence, the vice president's role was behind the scenes, what calls he was fielding, up to and including the House Republican leader, Kevin McCarthy. He's another one who, we only have a partial portrait of what the communications were between him and members of the administration. We have many members of Congress saying that they were making phone calls to people in and around the administration, up to and including President Trump. We don't have a full accounting of that. What we see instead is a dysfunctional series of law enforcement agencies layered on top of each other without adequate training, without adequate protections, and some kind of familiar recommendations that say we need to smooth those things out and get more interoperability and more cooperation among agencies.
And this report was also very carefully worded, Rick. Yeah, and I think that's an important point to recognize, that even loaded words like insurrection were avoided here. And the reason that members of Congress who were part of this report tried to thread this needle is that this was a bipartisan report. It was crafted by a Senate committee that was controlled by Republicans just a few months ago on January 6th. It is now controlled by Democrats. And frankly, the only way to get Democrats and Republicans on board for a particular set of words even is to make sure that those words don't offend many people. And I think it's important to read it in that light, that this was an attempt at finding language that both sides could agree on, even though that there were many facts around it that were omitted, some intentionally, I think other decisions were more artistic than intentional. Now, Democrats are renewing their calls for a bipartisan commission now. That seems unlikely. So what are the next steps for the investigation? Well, there's a couple of potential paths. The White House has all but ruled out a presidential commission, which wouldn't have had subpoena power anyway. The likeliest scenario is that we see Speaker Pelosi name a special committee in the House of Representatives, very much like what happened after the Benghazi investigation. It would be bipartisan in the sense that Democrats and Republicans would both be invited to attend the meetings and be part of the panel, but it would not be an equal split like the commission that has now failed in the Senate. That may be the only path forward. That at least would give subpoena power to the congressional investigators. And of course, there are dozens and maybe hundreds of law enforcement investigations and other congressional investigations that are continuing to look at various facets. But it's not clear yet whether any of those are going to take that holistic approach to say what led to this and what kind of accountability should there be for individuals in elected office who were part of either the decisions about how to secure the Capitol complex or the decisions or the lack thereof in terms of responding in real time.
All right, ABC News political director Rick Klein. Thanks, Rick. Always great to have you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.